This is your Daily 5 for Thursday, May 7th, 2026. For the final film in our April Sleaze series, Lando and I watched another Jess Franco entry, this time one from 1973, that sounds like a real mess in many different ways, was assembled in different cuts, has at least 2 titles that I've been able to find, at least 2 in English, and I don't really even know what cut technically we watched because I've seen the one we refer to considered the director's and or uncut version, but I've also seen some things that would indicate that that's not really true, at least the uncut version of it. But in any event, the title you'll most often see is A Virgin Among the Living Dead. The one that we watched was titled Christina, Princess of Eroticism. An ironic title because there's really no eroticism in this film whatsoever. I'm not actually sure what's in this film because whether intentionally or not, what this movie most feels like is an attempt to capture a waking nightmare on film. And that's something a lot of filmmakers that do low budget and surrealist type of things, they often try to do things like that. And it has varying results depending on who's watching it and what the actual, if there is any story, the way it's delivered and what you're meant to take from it. And I think this movie for a lot of people could be frustrating. It's not boring. I will say that. Lando and I were never bored. We both agreed that it came right up to the line of crossing over into being just bizarre for bizarre's sake, which can become boring, but it never crossed the line. The problem, though, is for at least the first half of the movie, there doesn't seem to be any real narrative. There's a setup. A young woman is in some non-American country to visit relatives she's apparently never met before in a castle because her father's recently died, and she's going to see these individuals and hear the will of her father being read and whatever his possessions were being dispersed. That's the setup. Now, between that and really the end of the movie, it's pretty unclear why certain things are happening. It's not even clear what the monsters of the movie are. It's either vampires or zombies or ghosts or all three. I know for a fact there's ghosts, but whether all of the characters are ghosts or not is never made all that clear to the audience. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. There is a place for surrealist, dream state, atmospheric filmmaking, but it's not going to be something that everybody's going to come into and be able to accept. And some of what makes it a little bit difficult with this movie is in the second half, it feels like suddenly there is a plot being shown, that we are getting some interesting themes, that something is meant to be conveyed, where we didn't have any of that in the first half. So was that on by design? Was that on accident? It's tough to know. I don't really know how to place this within Franco's filmography because I haven't seen enough of his movies. This did come up as good to medium in a number of lists, so that may indicate how the rest of his movies are. It could also just be personal preference on the list that I found. I wouldn't say it's a bad movie. Lando and I agreed it wasn't a badly made movie. There is some beautiful filmmaking in the second half specifically. There's a really, really well done shot that I'm sure we'll mention when we get into the details on Friday. That was very impressive. But again, this comes in the middle of a narrative that feels very, very unformed or intentionally so loose that you can kind of put whatever you want into it. And that's not necessarily to say that some people won't connect with this more than others, and maybe that's why it comes up in lists often, is because it does give you a lot of room for interpretation and personal kind of adding to the narrative, and that's a good thing sometimes. But this one, it's a little bit too loose. And I say that as somebody who's watched movies like this and been okay with things being very vague, and I don't mind that. But you kind of start to understand when it's being done on purpose and when maybe it's just because there isn't, and this is going to be an ironic word to use in this context, not enough focus on creating the vagueness, which is a strange thing to say. But if you've seen movies like this, the good examples, you know what I'm talking about. So I wouldn't necessarily tell people not to watch it. I don't think it's terrible. I think Lando will agree. It's not a terribly made movie, but it definitely requires a lot more from the audience than some of the other stuff that we've watched. And depending on whether you've watched a lot of Franco movies or not, you may want to take a chance on this. You may not. So again, Christina, Princess of Eroticism, not bad, but I don't know if I can necessarily say that it's good either. Later.